Welcome, everyone. This is not a sports betting show, as I like to say. This is the Predictive Playbook sports betting show. So it's not just your run-of-the-mill sports betting show where people give out gut feelings on who's going to win tonight. We back it up with concrete evidence, matchup analysis, and some high-powered analytics that I love, and I think you're going to love too. Before I bring in my guests, I must brag a little bit. I guess it's not bragging if it's true, but I am ranked number 3rd overall at sports capping out of more than 100 professional cappers. I'm very proud of that. 76% run in the NBA over the last 35 plays. College basketball, I'm ranked 8th overall out of more than 100, and also number 3 overall. I think I already said that. Number 5 in the NHL. So get me while I'm hot and get on board tonight. You can go to the predictiveplaybook.com and send me a message and we'll get you going. Let's get my guests on here. I think you recognize the faces. I'll let them tell you about themselves in a little bit here. But I want to get to Jim Coventry right away and talk about the NFL situation here. And, there's so much going on with the NFL chatter. I personally think that Cousins is going to the Atlanta Falcons, and I have no reason to say this. I didn't talk to anybody, but I at the point where I think it's a done deal. I just can't see another scenario working out that way. So, Jim, tell me what's wrong with that theory and what other places he could land maybe.
So obviously, and hello, everybody. Great to be here. Kirk Cousins is the prize of the free agent market. It's a quarterback-driven league. He is an established, successful veteran starter, 36 years old, no worries with the Achilles injury. That saps explosiveness. Kirk Cousins does not have explosiveness. He's a pocket passer. He's run for more than 125 yards twice in his career. So that injury to me means nothing. So in reference to John's question about Atlanta, here's the first concern I have. This is my gut. Cousins has not obviously mentioned anything about a contract talk with the Vikings, his current team. Well, it's possible the Vikings told him, go out, see what deal you can find, and we'll match it. The reason I think that, last year at the trade deadline, the team, before Cousins tore up his Achilles, there was talk about moving Cousins, maybe the Jets, maybe elsewhere. Cousins said he would not waive his no trade clause because he wanted to not uproot his family. Now, that could have been because he knew free agency was coming and didn't want to uproot twice, or it could mean he's been in Minnesota a long time. And if he's allowed to get a contract match from, say, Atlanta and Minnesota matches, he might be able to keep his family at home. So that's the first thing I'd be careful. But when speaking about him to Atlanta directly, here's what I'll say. Atlanta has Zach Robinson, who comes in as the offensive coordinator. I'll give you a little bit of info because it'll help understand what we're looking at. Robinson did coach under Sean McVay. He was an offensive coordinator for him. And between college jobs and pro jobs, he moved back and forth. But he likes to run an up-tempo offense. Now, here's the thing with McVay. We don't know if Zach Robinson is going to bring what McVay did or he has his own ideas. But we know that the Rams run a ton of pre-snap motion, middle of the pack and play action. And Zach Robinson does always like natural playmaking ability from his quarterback. Now, here's the problem. The offense that he could bring from Sean McVay requires 11 personnel. That means 3 receiver sets. Right now, Atlanta is not designed for that. They basically have Drake London and nobody else. Mac Hollins, Kadero Hodge, guys like this who are not honestly starting caliber receivers. So from a personnel standpoint, any version of McVay's offense may not have much of a chance to work with the team that he would inherit in the Falcons. Now, we already know the Falcons released Jonnu Smith, so that tells us they shed a tight end. They certainly could be looking to lighten things up. But again, there's concerns for Cousins because Cousins probably at this stage wants to play for A, money, and B, for a title. I don't think Atlanta is that close right now. That's what I'll say on this situation.
Yeah, I wonder if putting him in the situation with Bijan and the tight end whose name Kyle Pitts wouldn't be a really good fit for Cousins. I'm not a general manager, but I as an Atlanta Falcons fan, if I was, I would be pretty psyched if Cousins actually arrived on the scene. Rudy Reyes, your turn. Where do you think Cousins ends up? You're muted.
When people have dogs and they tend to bark, you tend to mute, or you want to mute them, but you can't. So I muted myself for that purpose. Anyway, there's a lot of things going on in the moving parts with Atlanta. One of the things that I know for a fact, this is not a done deal. There's a cap involved in all of this, right? The NFL free agency, we see all 32 teams go through their motions, finding out who's going to fit, who's not, who are the guys on the outside looking in. Steelers just cut safety Keanu Neal due to a failed physical. That's kind of a gray area. But outside of that, Kirk Cousins, and you're right, Jim, he doesn't have the weapons that he has. Of course, the Vikings no longer have Madison, so they're certainly working on trying to replace him. They may look deep into the draft, maybe a supplementary round, maybe a sixth round for someone to replace him. However, Kirk Cousins originally had signed a $66,000 deal. And from a personnel standpoint, you're right, Jim, they have no one to offset what Minnesota currently has. They don't have the blocking up front. They don't have the same really good offensive line. They don't have that kind of blocking, which they wish they could have. Arthur Blake's going to have to do some magic to get this team even past 500. We've seen Sam Howell for the Commanders, kind of get a decent amount of money, but with 21 interceptions, he's not doing so hot from a quarterback position. Of course, he was the main guy there. And then once Kirk Cousins decided to blow an Achilles heel, now he was out. I think that the Falcons can certainly do something in the NFL draft. The question is whether or not they focus on the quarterback position or answer some of their other needs as well. But as of right now, the Vikings are not even in what they call cap hell. They certainly have money to spend. It's just a question of whether or not they want to draft down and grab a guy or grab maybe a few guys to offset by not having a quarterback, and then pick one in the latter rounds as well, because Drake may actually be there. Now, he reminds me of a Kirk Cousins. The problem with Drake May is that he likes to force balls downfield and make some of the wrong decisions, and similarly wrong decisions that Kirk Cousins has. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Real quick interjection. Just this helps Rudy's case, but with the salary cap, both the Falcons and the Vikings have, as of today, $37 million under the cap. They have the same amount of money. I just wanted to point out, it was a great call, Rudy, on that.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, that is good. Chris, tell us where do you think Cousins will end up? And let's segue also into Sam Howell and where he's going to go. For what it's worth, I think he could end up in the AFC West somewhere. Who knows? Maybe even the Raiders can't get the guy they want in Daniels, and they have to more or less settle. Chris, what do you think about both of those situations?
Look, Kirk Cousins, I still think this. I mean, this is year 6 that he's been in Minnesota, which surprised even me. I started doing the math. I'm like, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3. Wow. Okay. I mean, it seems like yesterday when, he was banging heads in a Washington locker room saying you like that. But the bottom line is Minnesota is better set up for success for him at this stage of his career. Yeah, he could go chase the money. He could go to Atlanta. He could go to any pretty much place he wants. But the personnel and the package to win is in Minnesota. It's not in Atlanta. It's not, wherever he chases the dollars for a quarterback spot. It's in Minnesota. It seems like it's cut and dry, but then again, it's the NFL. Anything can happen because it usually does. Yeah, and it's usually the not for long league. Just ask a guy further down our segment list for today that it's not for long. But as for Sam Howell, I actually have to agree with you, John. I think he really does end up as a Raiders plan B or plan C at this point. The Raiders are going to drive hard for somebody. And then, inevitably they're not going to get that person. It's not Raidernomics, but it's just the law of the land for the one team in Vegas that really they're not the Golden Knights. It's that simple.
Yeah.
That's what I got to go with.
I think, like, for example, with the the situation with the Giants, it's like deja vu all over again in 2021. I think it was is they drafted Daniel Jones, right? And that was supposed to be the draft of all drafts for quarterbacks. And sadly for those players, it hasn't really panned out, has it? So now you, as a Giant fan, and those fans find themselves in the same situation in the sixth spot of the draft. And will they trade with the Patriots? I mean, they're bitter enemies. The Patriots lost 2 Super Bowls to Eli Manning. Could you see a possibility of a trade where the Giants move up to get Daniels, and then they just or Jaden? I'm sorry, Jaden Daniels, and Daniel Jones is out the door. That's what I think is going to happen. What do you think, Jim?
All right. When we look at this, first of all 3 teams at the top fundamentally need a quarterback. The Bears, you could argue Justin Fields. It sounds like they're going to get rid of him. So let's just say the Bears are in the draft for a quarterback. The Commanders, yep, they need a quarterback. The Patriots, seriously, Bailey Zappi's not the answer. Mac Jones wasn't the answer. All 3 of those teams need a quarterback. If each of those franchises believe the 3 quarterbacks that are out there are potential franchise builders, I don't know how they trade those, because the Patriots, yes, they're not a good team right now, but when you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, you draft a quarterback. So as to what they would get in a package to trade out of that, they would set their own team back because they wouldn't have a quarterback most likely. So I get the idea of trading up, but this year it might be tough to pull that off.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Let's go over to Rudy here and see what his thoughts are on this potential trade down by the Giants. And I have to say, are they just like the person that sits at the crap table and they keep putting the money in one after the other, and they just never win?
I think so. I think so. I think you're onto something, John. And here's why. This could be a giant win or maybe even a giant mistake, especially if they don't move Daniels and get him out of being a quarterback. I was never sold on Daniels. I was never a fan of Daniels. I thought that was a mispick. Yeah, he looked great in his second season, but then he faltered and fell off the wagon in the third season. A couple of quarterbacks fit the New York Giants, and one of those is the aforementioned Jaden Daniels, another Daniels. You're trading Daniels for Daniels, or getting rid of one Daniels to get another Daniels. There's a lot of potential that he has. He turned a lot of eyes as a reigning Heisman Trophy winner in 24. But one of the things I really like about him, not only is he from my hometown in San Bernardino, California, but that he's come a long way. And knowing that environment, knowing that he has a way to play out of that area, and now he's headed to the NFL draft, says a lot about who he is as a player. I think if the Giants decide to move down, they grab someone maybe like a Michael Penix Jr. Why? Because he's very accurate. Over 70% of his targets have been accurate downfield. And could he be available in the at the sixth position in the first round? Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you have teams in the mix like the Cardinals and maybe even the Los Angeles Chargers, even though they have Justin Herbert there. But I think it's a question on how the Giants want to approach this, and could they reach maybe a second round or mid-first prospect? Well, they should. I don't know that Daniels is that. I don't know if he's that ready. And to be honest with you, the Cardinals will work quarterbacks for the majority, unless your name is Kyler Murray and you cry yourself out of one deal to get into another. Actually go to die, no pun intended. And then Bo Nix, certainly a guy in question. New England, on the other hand, really needs to find out where they're at in the quarterback spot to say, well, we know Zappi's not it, to your point, Jim. And Chris, obviously, that's also something you have to look at as well. He's not that guy. Mac Jones is not that guy. Those are 2 mistake draft picks or acquisitions by Bill Belichick, which I think was probably one of the main reasons why Robert Kraft says off with your head, and now he's not a coach in the NFL. I think if you are the New England Patriots, you trade down, you get some guys, you get some bodies in there, and then go for a quarterback if there are any top 10 available in the second or third round.
Yeah, I agree. And Chris, I'm going to add a layer. This is going to make it fun, in my opinion. Let's say this is the theoretical. The Giants move to number 3. The Patriots then get number 6. The Eagles, now that Kelsey has retired officially, I have to admit, those appearances were heart-wrenching, really. I mean, it just shows how much he wears the emotions on his sleeve. I respect the guy immensely. But aside from that, the Eagles now need a center. They then trade with the Patriots, who will want to increase their draft assets, and they draft the center from Oregon, Jackson Powers Johnson. Could that happen, Chris?
It could actually happen.
Tell me why it can't.
And then there's also the flip side of where, like Jim said, this is bluntly easy. If you're the Patriots, do you really want to set your franchise any more back than you already have over the last, what you want to say, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years? You've probably set it back at least that many by keeping around Bill Belichick for a little bit too long. I know a little bit about this. The Devils did this with Martin Brodeur. I mean, it's just you have these iconic guys that just stick around a little bit too long. And in the Patriots case, with the number 3 pick, they need a quarterback. You absolutely need to draft a quarterback. There is no way that you cannot draft a quarterback. The guy that probably will be available at number 3 is a player that most would believe is going to be a franchise builder for them. The price that the Giants would have to pay to get to number 3 will be outrageous. And I don't think, if you're a Giants fan, as much as you want a quarterback that badly, it's really worth it at this point, considering all the other holes that New York has to fill, besides, of course, quarterback.
Yeah. So as Alex Vale, shout out to the chat room. We are now over 100 live viewers right now, guys. So that's pretty cool. Most of them are probably on the X. And if you do comment on the X, I'm told that if you comment on that tweet that you're watching and you want to ask us a question, it will filter into our queue, and we'll see it, and we'll do our best to present it and answer the question. So give it a shot and see if it works. I've never done it before, but it's worth a try. Anyway, Tyrod Taylor, probably an excellent backup, right? I was playing scenarios where the rich get richer, and there seems to be a need to have a really good backup quarterback, because how many quarterbacks did the Jets use last year? How many teams actually had their quarterback play every single game? And it's becoming more and more evident that injuries are preventing the starter from even finishing the season, let alone the playoffs. Does it make sense for the elite teams in the league now, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, the Eagles, et cetera, does it make sense for them to go after a Russell Wilson and make him a backup quarterback, and a Tyrod Taylor a backup quarterback?
I tell you what, Tyrod Taylor may be a better backup quarterback than Russell Wilson, depending on the system. Tyrod Taylor stepped in for Brian Daboll's offense last year, where a lot is schemed up. The receiving talent wasn't great, but Tyrod Taylor can read a defense. He could do the basic functions. Now, Tyrod Taylor's going to be 35 this year. He obviously hasn't been much of a producer in his career. He had a 20 touchdown season back in 2015. That was his high water mark. He hasn't had more than 5 touchdowns in a year since 2017. So obviously he's an emergency starter type. We know with the Chargers, he may have had a shot, but then he literally got a shot to the ribs and was, Justin Herbert time. Anyway, we go back to the point here. Russell Wilson, here's the problem. We learned last year, as soon as Sean Payton realized he was saddled with Wilson, first thing he did was he got 2 run-blocking linemen in the draft, Ben Powers and McGlinchey. And then they added a tight end to the room as well. So we knew right away Sean Payton was going to hide his quarterback. And they were about 7th or 8th in play action rate. So the whole point was you run, You use play action. You use Wilson on controlled throws. You basically hide your quarterback. Cortland Sutton made a lot of great plays, but the throws weren't always there. It was Sutton like being very athletic. So at this point, Tyrod Taylor would have to go into a heavy play action offense that is run based first, a team with a good defense. Honestly, he could start for the Steelers with Arthur Smith there, and his exact limitations fit in with that team. But in terms of backups, Taylor is more versatile.
Yep. Same question to you, Rudy.
I've always liked Tyrod Taylor as a person. He's done a lot of great things off the field, but on the field, he's good at the RPO. If you call the RPO packages, he has the propensity to actually make them count and make a lot of splash plays down the way. Mike Tomlin loves that kind of thing. He had 1,341 yards last year. His QBR was hovering around 89 to 90. He's got a long way. Tyrod Taylor will fit in the right system, but does he have to go through a Ryan Fitzpatrick and find the team that fits his scheme? Probably. I mean, he's had some type of tier reaching, as Jim stated, but sometimes he finds his way up and then quickly finds his way down. The peaks and valleys of the quarterbacks from a backup position throughout the NFL landscape. So I like Tyrod Taylor, great guy. I just don't know how much of a fit, how many splash plays he'll make with this Pittsburgh team. Now, of course, Steelers also released their center as well. So now they're going to be in for a center. Free agency doesn't exactly have great centers falling off the tree. Fortunately enough for Pittsburgh, they find a way to find great centers, Mike Webster being one of them. The Pouncey brothers, also another one. I mean, there's so much to like about the drafting position for Pittsburgh when it comes to centers. Quarterbacks, that remains to be seen. I'm not a fan of Kenny Pickett, never was a fan when he was drafted a couple years ago. And just like Stidham, we recognize who Stidham is and we know who Kenny Pickett is, and neither one of those guys are going to take you to the promised land, albeit the playoffs. I hate to compare Stidham and Kenny Pickett, but we've seen enough of Jarrett Stidham to know what he is and what he isn't. The matter of fact, the last appearance he had was against Las Vegas and lost that game 27-14. So as much as I like the comparables, I think if the Steelers do anything at all, maybe it's Russell Wilson time. I don't know. He is already a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He already has a championship and has certainly proven his way to not be a backup. But that just depends on, as Jim stated, and I have to agree with you, it depends on the system that either one of these quarterbacks go to make them starters or make them sitters. And if they're sitters, they're going to have to get their babysitting license because they're going to warm up that bench real fast.
Turning it over to you, Chris. Anything further to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to this. I mean, look, Russell Wilson. You look at guys like this and you go, well, even Tyrod Taylor, they're in the 35 plus crowd. Whether that be actual age or sort of chronological physical talent that's left. You're getting what you're getting. And could they start in one or two spots? Maybe. But the reality is they are the ultimate babysitter. It's not unfortunately
Choice of words.
You're not going to get the magic Ryan Fitzpatrick, run into the sunset. Or here we go. Here's a classic. The Steve DeBerg run into the sunset. God bless that guy. The only guy I know that could play with a detached finger. I'm just saying, it's unbelievable.
On the throwing hand, nonetheless.
It's still something. And the guy had a heck of a sunset for his career. I mean, you're not getting players like that anymore. They don't last that long. It's it's still the not for long league. And now it almost should be just the NFES, the not for even shorter league at this point. So you're getting what you're getting, and don't worry about expecting caviar when you're getting
hamburger.
Maybe hamburger helper even.
There you go.
or
There
Taco
you go.
Bell food, one or the other.
Now I'm not hungry for lunch. Thanks, Chris.
Ooh.
One thing I
Don't worry,
wanted-
don't worry.
I'm
Jam
going
and
to have
Crepe.
a question for
Crepe
all
is
of you
open.
guys shortly here, but some of the people here want to see a betting algorithm, so let's do one really quick.
Nice.
There is no discussion on this. This tells you who to bet on, and if you don't like it, then don't bet it. But the one is an NBA where I'm running pretty hot, and it's a pretty remarkable system, and it goes like this. That's the West Coast tourney. That's going to be the next one.
Ooh.
So now the Celtics lost. That was an 8-unit winner on Cleveland the other night. Very surprising that they won outright. I just thought it was too many points at 8.5, and it turned out to be a good one. Now we're going back onto the Celtics here as a dog, minus plus 1.5 over the Nuggets. And what supports this here is a 71% winning system since 2018, and it's very simple. Bet on road dogs priced between the threes. That means a 3-point favorite to a 3-point dog. The road team's coming off a road loss, which they are. A host is coming off an upset loss at home, which Denver is because they gagged that one away the other night. That set of parameters, just 3 of them, 35-16 straight up, 36-15 against the spread, 71%. So I do like the Celtics. This is a sample of an 8-unit premium bet that gets sold to my clients every day at Predictive Playbook and also at sportscapping.com. So this is the real McCoy. Now remember, too, use your head. This system loses 29% of the time. So I could have said, I got this great algorithm for you guys, and it loses 29% of the time instead of emphasizing the win-win-win thing. Over time, there's going to be losing days with this algorithm, and it happens. But you keep playing this, the odds are in your favor. You're going to make some money over the remainder of the season. So that is my NBA play of the day for the show. Now, let's have a little bit of fun. This wasn't on our menu, but it just kind of hit. So my spontaneity's just overwhelming me right now. Of these quarterbacks, I think, let me list them to you. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. My gut feeling from watching as many games as I have, if I had to pick the stud to come out of this, it's Bo Nix. He's been through adversity. His character had really shown after the way he came out of Auburn, and he played extraordinarily well this year. And I kind of like that moxie in a quarterback. He has the NFL size, and he has the pedigree. I think he fits in just about any type of variation of an NFL offensive scheme. He's coachable. Caleb Williams, my concern with him is that he's very, very talented, but he has his own unique style of playing, and you almost have to design the offensive scheme around his assets, which is not a negative. I mean, you can certainly design an offense around him and build a team around him. But honestly, if I had a choice and looking at this, say, 3 years down the road, I think Bo Nix is going to be the guy everybody wished they would have drafted. Let's see what Jim Coventry thinks about that list of Daniels, Williams, Nix, Penix, and May.
My worry with Caleb Williams, he had 5 games against ranked teams. He wasn't good in 4 of those games. And against Notre Dame, I mean, there are pictures of him crying on the sideline. I mean, that's how bad Notre Dame got to him. I don't think there was something in his eye. I think he was legitimately crying. I'm worried about him because, look, you could beat up on bad teams all day long, and it really doesn't say much. And maybe it was just like bad variants, bad matchups. But if you're going to be a generational quarterback, you'd like to think you could overcome those matchups. Right now, Jaden Daniels and Drake May are kind of like 1A, 1B for me for the next spot. I think they might be ahead of Williams in my mind because I just have that concern with Caleb Williams. But and your idea on Bo Nix, I like it. I always don't like when a quarterback plays 5 years, doesn't come out because obviously he wasn't ready to come out. Usually if you're that good and you're going to be a difference maker, you're probably good enough to get out early. Now, a lot of these guys played there 4 years, but Nix was around 5 years. So that's just, he's an inconsistent passer too. He wasn't asked in his offense to go through progressions a lot. So, and he locks on his primary a little too often receiver. So there were just some questions there, but maybe he develops into something. Definitely.
Rudy Reyes, what do you think?
I've always liked Bo Nix. And, to your point, Jim, I'm actually glad that he stayed in another year because that makes him much more NFL ready, NFL capable. He has the pocket presence. He has a little bit of everything, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little hodgepodge action. He certainly does bring everything, including arm strength and accuracy to his game. But the experience factor is the underlying meaning to it all because that's what he really brings. He's more of a plug-and-play quarterback than all the aforementioned. Look, I take nothing away from Jaden Daniels or Drake May, but when you want a quarterback-ready, NFL-ready guy to step in, and this isn't the next coming of Ben Roethlisberger. This is the next coming of a guy who's more than prepared, more than ready to take that stage and do, obviously Ben was called when his number was called, but I think that he will be the eventual starter wherever he may land. And if I were a team that has a plug and play ready for those pieces, that's certainly a guy in Bo Nix that you would want to have right off the bat. Caleb Williams, yes, big gun, big guy. He was able to control his emotions while he was on the field, but not so much on the sideline. So certainly a question of whether or not mental toughness comes into play. And if that's even a real conversation for some quarterbacks like Caleb Williams. But when you look at I think when you talk about 1A and 1B, my 1B is Michael Penix Jr. My 1A is Bo Nix. And then you get into the 2 category, and that could be indicative of the rounds that he get picked in. I don't know. But the way I look at it is that when you look at Caleb Williams and his overall, his body of work in general, he definitely is that 2-tier, 2B, 2C kind of guy. He's not the Sam Darnolds, he's not the Mark Sanchez's. He certainly falls below that tier, but not by much. So if you want a guy that you want to draft an immediate impact maker on the field, it's Bo Nix.
So it sounds like we have Jim. What was your result? What was your vote?
I went more with Drake May. I was fine with him or Jaden Daniels. I kind of had them kind of like even, so I kind of have them at the top. But like I said, hard to argue with any of the logic that you fellows supported.
Well, Chris, you can join the Bo Nix crowd and pick May, and it'll be a tie among the 4 of us, or you can pick somebody else.
Oh, let's just go different completely. And
I'm not surprised.
I'm still riding Jaden Daniels. I want the raw talent. I know that wherever he goes, he's going to have time to work on the inefficiencies. Look, the guy could not throw a 15-yard out pattern his first year as a quarterback. It was bad. I could remember, like old video YouTube footage where literally it's like, oh, he can throw the ball 50, 60 yards down the field. Guy, I forget the name of it wasn't even like the offensive coordinator. It might have been like the quarterback coach or some equivalent, or Billy Bob for all we know. But this guy's like, it was a scene straight out of Unnecessary Roughness where it's like, okay, now throw the out pattern. And literally he could not hit this guy like more than 5 times out of 10. And there was no pressure. It's just throw it. Fast forward 3-4 years later, guy can make the throws. He's athletic as anything. You need an athletic quarterback in the NFL badly. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Does Mahomes make all the throws? Yes. Does he miss all the throws sometimes? Oh, yes. We know that well. I have concerns. Obviously, Bo Nix, you couldn't beat Washington. I know. For once, it wasn't his fault.
Beat the Washington Reds, or I'm sorry, the Commanders. I almost slipped there. My goodness.
He beat the Huskies once, to be fair, but he also beat himself. Remember, everybody forgets the first quarter of that second game where it wasn't as if Nix played badly. He just made a few bad decisions that eventually came back to haunt Oregon. It wasn't like he threw 3 picks and the game was over. It was little things. And that worries me with Nix a lot. I mean, he's grown from what happened at Auburn, and nobody wants to bring that up. But it was there. Unlike Caleb Williams,
like Michigan losing to Appalachian State, though.
No, that is true.
Washington was a pretty good team, right?
Washington was a pretty good team, but it's the old killer instinct where I want a quarterback that can sit there and just literally jam it down your throat at this point. And Jaden Daniels,
Well, that would be your man, Daniels.
Daniels in time in an NFL will be able to adapt to an NFL setup probably better than any of the three. I mean, like Jim said, Drake May is right up there. My only concern is a little bit with his footwork. I mean, look, is he ever going to be, Twinkle Toes Flintstone? No. But you notice certain throws where it's like, okay, this guy should be able to make this in his sleep. And it doesn't happen. So that has to be obviously worked on first and foremost. It's like any NHL player that comes in that can't bloody skate worth a lick. It's the same kind of thing. You need that footwork for an NFL quarterback. So,
it's so true.
Out of all of them, Daniels has the footwork. He has the ability to make the throws. He has the athleticism. He can always sit for a little bit. He doesn't seem to. He's not going to cry on the sideline. He's not going to hang his head. He's just going to go back and do what he does best.
We have to have a short memory. You mentioned the Twinkle Toes. I bet you Jaden Daniels has a great bowling game.
He might.
Bowling game?
Yes. Yes, John.
I love bowling. I actually have a bowling league tonight.
Hey, you guys mentioned the Commanders. When they renamed their team, they should have gone back to their roots and called themselves the Hogs, based on that identity they had back in the 80s. Yeah. I think that would have been a great team name, and nobody would have argued. Nobody would have said they were being offensive by calling them the Hogs. I think that would have been great.
You get like a pig wrapped in bacon. I mean, this has a lot of potential to it.
Yeah. Hey, everybody loves bacon, right? Speaking of bacon, there is a news. I don't know if you even want to call it a rumor, if it even has got to this point yet, but they're thinking about putting their name back to where it was, which was the Redskins.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I wish the baseball team in Cleveland would go back to their original name.
Right. The Braves.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do with the Major League movies? They edit it so it says Guardians.
Yeah.
Wild Thing's not going to look good in a Guardians uniform. He's just not.
Yeah. If you could grow hair anyway, you'd have that mohawk.
All right. That's I have one more little question about that with wide receivers, but let's do the college basketball. Then we'll do the wide receivers. Chris will talk about his best bet for the NHL tonight, and then final thoughts, and we're done. So, West Coast tourney is going on. And, some people would say, why in the world would I ever want to bet Pepperdine or Pacific? Because they're really not very good teams, especially the latter one. And I can't even spell Pacific right. It's so bad. But I don't bet teams. I don't bet mascots. I bet situations and numbers. That is what matters to me. I could care less if I'm betting on the Guardians or another team name. The mascot is irrelevant. So we are going to bet on favorites between 3.5 and 9.5 points. The favorite has seen their last 5 games play over the total by 30 or more points. The dog has been crushed recently, losing to the spread by 48 or more points, spanning their last 7 games. This has gone 159 wins, 40 losses. Against the spread record, 130 wins, 69 losses for 65% winning bets over the past 25 seasons. Only 4 seasons, and modest losses at that, were produced in those 4 seasons. So every other season, 21 of them were profitable. So this tells us to bet on Pepperdine minus 9.5 points tonight over Pacific, and that sadly will be the end of Pacific's season tonight. That is the college basketball betting algorithm. It's also an 8-unit play, so I'm giving you the real McCoys here. This isn't like free pick, sports betting show. These are ones that go to the clients. So I hope you enjoy it. And like I said, if you like it, bet it. If you don't, just sit back and watch, see how it goes, and we'll do another one tomorrow. So my next question here is pretty simple, and I hope this little banner works here that I created while we were talking. It's not scrolling. Let's see. There we
There it
go.
goes.
There we go.
Everybody has technical
Oh.
difficulties.
Got to beat it into existence.
Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, is the main stud right now. But of these five, which one do you think is going to be the stud out of that group of five 2 or 3 years from now? And we'll go right around the horn with Jim, Rudy, and then Chris.
I've gotten through the quarterbacks. I do most of my work on NFL stuff. So, and I'm working on free agency heavily now. I got the quarterbacks. I'm not with it with receivers. So I'm going to pass the buck, and I'll be able to speak on that in the next couple of weeks, but not now.
Sorry about that, Jim. You had told me that before, and didn't mean to put you on the spot there. But I think the Troy Franklin kid from Oregon, and maybe I got the Oregon bug because of Bo Nix, etc. I think he could be a diamond in the rough. I mean, granted, he's one of the top recruits right now in the draft. It's not much of a reach to say that he's a diamond in the rough, but I think those names on the bottom two, Franklin and Coleman, are going to be quality NFL players going forward if they stay healthy. What do you think, Rudy?
I like, and I know everybody's on the Harrison bandwagon, and that's great and wonderful out of Ohio State. And you know what? And for all intents and purposes, he has been absolutely magical. His season was fabulous. Everything that he had done at the combine, everything that he continues to do to show his preparedness coming out of Ohio State makes him relatively viable in regards to top 3 draft picks. I mean, won't you be my neighbor in Malik Neighbors out of LSU? How about if for some reason the Commanders draft down and they have already grabbed Jaden Daniels and went ahead and picked Malik Neighbors? Wouldn't that just be a 1-2 punch? And I think because of their familiarity in college can turn it around. This isn't a Derek Carr, situation. Get into Devontae Adams. This is the 2024 version of who these guys are headed into the first year of college. So I like the Marvin Harrison nab, number 1 overall. And if I were the Chicago Bears and I had that pick, guess what I'm doing? I'm drafting down. Sorry, Marvin, but there are weapons that are certainly going to be there in McConkey and Coleman, Mitchell out of Texas, Devontae Walker out of North Carolina, and of course you have the big bad Jermaine Burton out of Bama. So rich and thick in the sense of, I don't mean thighs, but in the amount of guys available. The amount of picks offensively are just off the absolute chain. Now, there are some comparables between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Calvin Johnson, maybe because their last 3 letters of their name end in S-O-N. Somebody's son, somebody's brother, sister, cousin, uncle. I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be your first overall wide receiver picked in this upcoming draft.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I mean, there is a gap between him and the rest, I think. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, see, this is where I go 3, 4, and 5, and I as an NFL team, I try to stay alive. It's very simple here. If I have any brains at all among these top 3 GMs right now in the draft, I'm packaging Daniels and Neighbors. I really am. I'm getting behind this more and more. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. You look at guys this year that were so grossly misused because unfortunately they ended up in a bad scheme or a really bad scheme. I'm sorry, Jalen Hyatt. I apologize so badly because there was so much potential there. I mean, yeah, everybody saw the Arizona game, and I know it's Arizona, but you saw what happened when Hyatt was allowed to just simply go down the field and run his routes. And you see, guys like Neighbors, you see guys like Coleman. Just let them do what they do best. Let them excel. Whereas Marvin Harrison Jr., let's face it, could do pretty much whatever he wants on the field. And he's gone about it the right way. So it's not like you could sit there and go, oh, well, he's this bad boy guy. He does push-ups in the driveway. He moons reporters. I mean, I could go through some of the funny things that wide receivers have done. He's not going to sit there and say he's my quarterback. He just goes about it and takes care of business. But at the same time, I want guys that are a little bit more raw at this point. I don't need that. And you're not going to get him that high. Once you get past a certain point, you're not going to have to worry about drafting most of these guys in the teens even. By the way, go shop your props in the next few weeks. Because obviously right now you see the number 1 pick, number 2 pick, will this guy go in the top 5, top 10? But wait a little bit. And you're going to see what we saw last year with some of the wide receivers. And it's like, oh, under 21.5 is this, or just trust me on it. Be a little bit patient. But out of these guys, you're probably going to get more value out of the 3, 4, and 5 on John's list than numero uno or dos.
Yeah, I think so too. Chris, take us into your NHL best bet here, and then we'll go around the screen here with final thoughts and some promos. If you want to tell everybody where they can find you, that would be great. So, Chris, I think you have something with Vancouver going on tonight.
Yeah, we kind of look. This is interesting tonight because, as we know, Vegas and Kelly McCrimmon. Look, the best way to describe this: there's an old wrestling promotion, as they like to call, nice little mem that sits there. It's like, I do this better than you, and just drops the mic. However, the problem is with Vegas tonight is they're in a bad spot. They haven't been playing so well lately. Vancouver has their guys. They believe they're in on that Jake Gensel guy from Pittsburgh. But they have a goaltender. And right now, Vegas doesn't have the defense and goaltending in sync. They've lost a few games at home. They've lost 7 out of 10. Vancouver was roaming around, John, in some books as high as even or even plus.
It's crazy.
This spot. I mean, I've seen them at minus 115, and I've seen them as good as plus 102. So go get out the big giant book. Go start spreading it really quickly and find a value here and roll with it, because numbers are going to change all over the place this afternoon. Once guys are getting held out and once guys are coming in, you're going to see. I've seen it already with Calgary and Tampa Bay as a good example. Minus 150 on BetMGM, but for our Canadian viewers, minus 175 on Score Mobile. What? Or 1 point something. So yeah, I know. Don't forget. I have our decimal viewers in check here. It's the same with Nashville. Long winning streak. Poor UC Saros, God rest his soul, watched 2 pucks bounce in like a pinball against Montreal. What are the odds? They're only minus 162 at DraftKings tonight against the Buffalo Sabres, who have players coming in and going out. Oh, by the way, that 3-way money line, John, is plus money still. It's at plus 105. It's hanging firm. I don't know how long it's going to. They're in a great spot to bounce back. You get that Phillips Forsberg, shots on goal prop going. I'm just saying, it keeps hitting. He had 6 shots the other night, scored the first goal, which paid, by the way, plus 575. And it was Forsberg Tuesday.
That's cool, man. I got one thought before I'm going to turn it over to Jim so everybody can find out more about him and where he does his best work. And he's the GOAT, by the way, for DFS in the NFL for me. Now, check this out. This is something I woke up to this morning. The Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA found a way to score 9 points in the fourth quarter. So I thought, oh my God, this has to be rare. So since 1995, there actually have been 529 NBA games played in which a team scored fewer than 10 points in any quarter. Those teams produced an 87 and 442 record for 16%. So the Milwaukee Fear the Deer isn't really scary right now. Scored 9 in a very strange 125-90 Golden State win last night after scoring 58 in the first half. The Bucks did 58 in the first half. and they score 9 in the fourth quarter. So I just wanted to point that out as if you were on the Bucks, that was a terrible beat. If you were on the under, if you're on the over, that was a terrible loss. When you have that many points scored in the first half and an NBA team scores 9. This not just a bad team, a really good team scored 9. Anyway, Jim, take it away. Tell everyone where they can find you and your great work, and then we'll go to Rudy and Chris, and I'll sign out.
So obviously NFL free agency is coming up, and if you look at the calendar, you'll see it technically starts Wednesday. Not true. The legal tampering period starts Monday, so be ready for that. To catch up with my work, first of all, on the X at Jim Coventry NFL, that's the hub for everything. You can get the link to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, which I'm on Mondays. We have other shows for that. I'll be doing breaking news videos on the X as free agents sign to go over instant reactions to those. That will be helpful for fantasy. And if you want a free 2-day trial at RotoWire to cover all the sports, go to rotowire.com/Jim.
Awesome, Jim. Rudy, where can everybody find you and your great work?
Oh, man, there's so much going on. Oh, and Chris, Joel Edmondson, reportedly headed to Toronto, just an FYI for a little NHL betting prop for those.
Ooh, the bad leg is waiting for him.
Could very well be. We'll see. Everybody can go to therudeduckshow.com. I'm on iHeartRadio. I cover 3 stations regularly. CRN with California Regional News on iHeartRadio. I cover Seattle as well as KEIB in Southern California. So I'm everywhere, even though I'm sitting in my chair. Everybody can go to X at Rude Dog Race. So many follow. Love talking sports. And I did watch that game last night against the Warriors. It was a shellacking of a deer that was in fear of being in the headlights because nobody feared the deer at that point other than their own shadow. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
9 points.
Unbelievable.
9.
Chris, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me on the X at Chris Wassel DFS, where I may be watching any random degenerate sporting event that rivals the cosmos at 3:30 in the morning. I can't imagine what person would be possessed to do such a thing. Also, obviously, you can find some of the NHL picks there, props, and of course, because tis the season, the NHL trade deadline show over at Full Press Hockey starting at 1:00 tomorrow. There may not be many trades left. We might have to eat a mountain of peanut butter, like Jay from TSN, the classic trade deadline show where he literally dives headfirst into a mountain of peanut butter that looks straight out of a lava sundae. But either way, like we said, the next two nights for NHL betting are going to be rough, much like it is in any sport come the trade deadline. Just keep your eyes on social media and wherever you can to see what trades are made, to see which players are held out. And as always, follow us, ask questions, and bet with that head.
The noggin. Most of all, Chris, I'm really happy that my therapist is panning out for you. It used to be an all-nighter for you, and now you're only watching at 3:30 in the morning. So I think progress is being made.
Progress.
And with that said, thanks for watching, everyone. And remember the 2 most important things. Bet with your head, never over it. And may all the wins be yours.